This is my mare, Dani. Dani is about 12 years old and we've had her for approximately 6 months. She had professional training before she arrived here. However, in her time here, we've noticed a few things. Dani does not like to be caught, she doesn't like to be haltered, she doesn't like her face touched, and she doesn't like the saddle being cinched up. When we bring Dani out to work with her, she will cooperate, but if given the chance, she avoids interaction. Here you can see she's just grazing and ignoring me even though I'm just off to the side of her. I want Dani to love interacting with people, and so I'm trying to develop a really positive association for Dani with human interaction. I started by just rewarding her every time she brought her nose up off the ground, and she really quickly progressed from keeping her head up to actively interacting with me. When she started following me, I rewarded every step she took toward me until she was consistently and reliably coming towards me, and she picked that up really quickly as well. Then I began to just walk away from her to see if she would follow, and she did. So I started walking around as one would when leading a horse without a lead rope, and she walked right next to me. So I rewarded that, and I tried stopping to see what she would do, and she stopped as well, so I rewarded that. I was very, very pleased. I did not expect that behavior right away. I'm essentially clicker training here, although I'm using a verbal marker in place of a clicker. This is Dani's first time ever doing this, and she caught on so fast. It was remarkable to me. I've been clicker training for about 20 years or so, mostly dogs, but in the past year and a bit, I've expanded into clicker training horses, and I have to say I have been amazed with the results I've achieved. So after it became clear that Dani would lead without a lead rope and without being asked very readily, I decided to see how she would do backing up. I didn't touch her, I just walked toward her and rewarded her when she moved back. She did amazing. She actually backed up better at Liberty here than she usually does on a lead line. Although she's not standing square, here I am just rewarding Dani for standing still. She has a kind of a difficult time with just holding a stand. She wants to keep moving, so I'm rewarding her for just keeping her feet in one spot. And eventually this will translate to standing still at the mounting block. Then we practiced backing up again, and once again she did great with that. To be clear, this is the first time that I have done this with her. Next, I worked on creating a positive association with her nose being touched. Dani usually yanks her head away if you try to touch her nose. For whatever reason, she does not like her face being touched. So here, I'm giving her the option of turning her head away or moving away. I'm rewarding her every time she allows me to place my hand on her nose. Now, also, if you watch, if she pulls her head away even slightly when I offer my hand, I do not touch her. So I allow her to say no, and I only touch her nose when she keeps her face there and doesn't pull away. And of course, every time I touch her nose, she gets a reward. She very quickly stopped pulling her nose away from me. Like, this has been a big deal for Dani. Like, she hates having her face touched. So I was astounded by how quickly she allowed me to just place my hand on her nose. I think that listening to her no when she moves her face away is huge. Like, horses need to have a choice in what happens to them. So often we expect them to just do as they're told. I prefer, instead of a horse that will just do as they're told, a horse that works in cooperation because he or she wants to. Usually I keep Dani's halter on for the duration of our training or riding session because she is difficult to halter. She tosses her head up because she does not like it. So at this point I decided I would take the halter off and we would work on haltering. And just like when I touched her nose, you can see I'm giving her the option of moving away. If she pulls her head away from the halter, I do not push farther. I just put the halter back down. So she's giving me a lot of no here. So I'm just holding the halter up. If she allows me to touch it to her nose without pulling her head away, here she's pulling her head away quite a bit. But if she allows me to touch it to her nose without pulling her head away, then she gets a reward. After some more no's, suddenly she gives a yes. So we had a bit of a breakthrough here, and back to no, some more no. And finally another yes. And now, the big breakthrough, she allows me to slide the noseband up on her nose. Because that was a massive breakthrough, we take a little break and just chill for a minute. After a little break, we start over again with the halter, see how it goes. She starts out avoiding the halter as per usual, but very quickly this time she actually starts sniffing it and checking it out instead of pulling her head away. She's getting the idea here. You can see she's starting to think, oh, wait a second. This actually can be a good thing. This time we very quickly progress to putting the noseband over her nose. And while she does pull back a little bit, she doesn't actually yank her head away. So that's progress and she gets rewarded for that. At this stage, I prefer to reward her while the noseband is still over her nose, so she realizes that that is what the reward is for and not the pulling of the halter off of her face. Since she was doing well with that, I decided to just put the halter on to see how it went. And look at that, she does not yank her head away or throw her nose up in the air, which is a big deal for her. And she allows me to stroke her nose once the halter is on, which is also a big deal. I was absolutely thrilled at this point. I tell you, I was almost in tears. I felt so happy for Dani, because who the heck wants to go through life hating having their face touched and tossing their head around every time they need to put the halter on? That must be so miserable for her. I would love for her to really enjoy life and feel good about all of her handling. From this point, I just keep practicing putting the halter on her. You can see she pulls back a little bit, but she's not tossing her head, and then she does lower it again, so she's getting the idea. And although it's not perfect yet, I would like a lower head. This is a fantastic start, and I'm not gonna diss on this at all. I'm so happy with this. And now, because she is handling this well and she's not pulling her head away or backing up, I decided it's time to do up the throat latch. So get that done up. And she's haltered again, but no stress this time. So I'm pretty happy with that. I would eventually like Dani to lower her head on cue to help with having a nice low head for haltering and bridling. So I'm just starting to shape that behavior here. I'm using a food lure, and eventually I'll fade that lure out and put it on a verbal cue to get her to put her head right down. Now I'm putting the reins on. I'm just clipping them onto her halter, and we're going to do a little bit of riding. Dani is broke to ride and she rides very well. However, she can be a little bit difficult to steer and she doesn't stand so well for mounting. So first we're working on just turning her head with some very light pressure. So she gets a reward every time she turns her head. And don't mind me standing a little bit awkwardly here. Dani kind of fidgets and moves her feet a bit, so I was having a hard time finding the best position to stand in to get her to just turn her head. There she goes, reward. And now we're lining up at the mounting block. So I'm just getting her in a good position, asking her to line up, and reward when she's in the right spot. This is just a little segment of the work I did on mounting. Basically, I just put my foot in the stirrup repeatedly, put a bit of weight on the saddle, and rewarded when she held still. And then we just had a leisurely little ride. I didn't get very much footage of this. That's thanks to my daughter being silly with the camera. But we had a nice little ride. We went in both directions. We did some light steering. Nothing fancy, no trotting, no canter. I just wanted her to be calm and to relax into the ride, and as you can see, she is actually quite relaxed. She's paying attention to me. She's listening. I was talking to her quite a lot, so you can see her ears kind of flicking back at me. I was telling her what a good girl she is. Does a nice stop there. Very nice, Dani. Thank you so much. What a good girl. And then my daughter, after filming all of this for me, decided that she would very much like a ride. So she and Dani had a turn together. And here she has a nice smooth soft turn, so you can see that that reinforcement on turning her head paid off. She is such a good girl. And of course, when she's done, she gets a bucket for her efforts. We always end a training session or a riding session or a trail ride with a bucket. And that just kind of helps to put an even more positive spin on everything that just happened. So here she's got her alfalfa cubes and her hemp pellets and her supplements, and she's doing great.